You may have noticed that the dictionary meaning of a thumbs up emoji is an indication of satisfaction or approval. But if you are from a culture where they interpret it differently, well, you may want to rethink, the next emoji that you send, because it could be interpreted as a digital signature, because it could serve as an approval to a contract, just like in Canada, where a farmer was actually fined $61,000 for misusing an emoji. Now, this is the story. He was sent a contract document via text message, but instead of opening and reading the contract first, he sent a thumbs up emoji. And the message he sent, the thumbs up emoji, was to acknowledge that he has received the message, but he was sued for breach of contract after he failed to deliver, and the court ruled that the farmer's thumbs up emoji, that response qualifies as agreement on the contract terms. The cases where emoji is used as evidence are popping up in courts all around the world. And some of the questions many Nigerians are asking right now is, how prepared is the Nigerian legal system, in the interpretation of emoji cases, And other questions are, would a Nigerian even consider going to court because of an emoji? What about the older judges, those who may not be familiar with newer vernacular? So how do they interpret emoji cases? Before we go straight into the trial of this whole thing, there are some very important people I'd like you to meet.
I am Jennifer Daniel, and I am a member of the Unicode Consortium, which is a not-for-profit organization that digitizes the world's languages. I'm also the chair of the Emoji Subcommittee, which you could say is the group of individuals responsible for those smileys and peaches on your phone.
My name is Abayomi Aruni. I'm a legal practitioner. I've been in legal practitioner for at least 10 years now. Apart from that, I will call myself a serial entrepreneur. I have a bunch of budding startups that I'm invested in or I'm actually working on.
My name is Adiola Onikui. I'm a legal practitioner, and that's all about me, really.
No. There's more. Now, he's a corporate strategist with expertise in commercial and IT law. Apart from that, he's also a contributing editor for a legal news site called The Lawyer Daily. And lastly, but not least, we have Dr. Ikechukwu Obiaya. Now, he is the Dean School of Media and Communication, Pan Atlantic University. To talk about the future of emoji-based cases, we must know if there has ever been a case of such in Nigeria to see how, it was handled.
So yes, I don't think we had any sort of cases involving emojis in Nigeria.
And I also wanted to know if there is a database of sort where anyone could, get records of cases heard in Nigeria. I'm talking all across the nation, in which we might find an emoji-based case that went unnoticed.
So we have things like Law Pavilion. We have the yellow books you always see in lawyers' offices. Every time you see lawyers' offices, law reports, right? So those are reported by publishing houses, and obviously the electronic ones are better because you can just search and find what you want.
For any emoji-based case to be tried in Nigeria, there has to be some form of legislation that, covers its interpretation.
Right now, there isn't anything that can. The Evidence Act, which is the main act that regulates evidence, doesn't cover emoji, and I don't see that happening anytime soon.
If the Evidence Act doesn't cover emoji, what will happen if an emoji-based case were to arise today?
There's not a lot of innovation in our lawmaking, so they have to start getting a bit more innovative when they're interpreting the statute books, because there is leeway, right? Judges have a lot of independence. Judges have a lot of leeway when they're interpreting statute books. And so an argument can be made that if such a case comes up, a judge that is well-versed in matters of this sort of nature would be able to innovate in a way that is clear, right? And that clarity is important, because oftentimes you find out that judges just give a sort of judgment that is not clear, but they tell you to go on a pill, right? And just, it's just to get it out of the way and over with.
In that response, there were two options. It's either they get innovative or they get the case out of the way. So I wanted to know if there is a third or better option.
The only way we can inculcate emoji evidence in our laws is very simple, by amending the Evidence Act 2011 to accommodate emojis and emoji-related cases.
If amending the Evidence Act is the only way to accommodate emoji evidence cases, now how ready is the lawmakers to create legislations to that effect?
In our country, right, I'll give you an example of you're talking to someone who's older than you, right, on WhatsApp, right, and you send an emoji as an answer. There are certain older people who will take that as an insult, right? And so that cultural sense comes into play in our lawmaking too, because of course our lawmakers are part of the culture that we are in. So would our lawmakers, because they make the laws that would be interpreted by the judges, would they be able to get to that level where they start saying things like emojis as accepted forms of communication when it comes to contractual dealings, for example, to link it to law? I hope we get there. But I don't think we're there yet.
It sure appears that we're not ready for emoji-based cases, but in the event that someone is being treated unfairly, can emoji be brought in as evidence in Nigerian court?
Well, you know what? Anything can be brought in as evidence. You could actually try to bring it in, but you would have a very, very hard time convincing the other party and the judges for your case. It would be very hard for you to convince them to actually take your stance.
So, if it is difficult to use emoji as evidence in court, then why should I try? Why should I even try? I mean, I know that it's difficult and I'm already feeling discouraged. What about those who do not even know that there is an added difficulty using emoji as evidence in court? Well, I decided to ask other Nigerians if they would go to court if they had sufficient emoji evidence to prove that their lives were being threatened. And these are their responses.
You sent me a gun emoji. It's literally you're trying to come at me now. So what's the reason behind it? So obviously I could literally take you to court for it.
There are obviously threat messages, a gun, what again? A knife. Yeah, I think it's enough evidence.
Well, I don't have a reason to go to court. Because it doesn't mean the person have a plan to kill me.
Who is this person? But in my mind, he doesn't know me. He's probably just playing a prank, something like that.
Sue them for what? Sending me an emoji? Mm-hmm. No, it's all fun, I guess. It depends on the person sending it. So, no, I don't think so.
As you can see, it tells that most Nigerians, even though unaware of the difficulty, don't even take emoji seriously. And Dr. Ikechukwu Obiaya agrees.
For a fellow just to send me that, because I could send any of these emojis to my friend as a joke. For instance, my friend says, "You and those ugly glasses you wear," and then I respond to him with a gun emoji. What am I saying to him? I'm going to deal with you, but that's not a joking. For me, it will be a joke. I personally will not consider that sufficient evidence to go to court on.
If most Nigerians don't take emoji seriously as evidence material and the Nigerian legal system doesn't consider emoji serious enough to be in the Evidence Act yet, then what would be the likely Nigerian court interpretation, of the recent emoji-based case where the court in Canada decided that a thumbs up emoji sent in a text message illustrates approval or consent to a contract?
I don't think they'll interpret it the way the Canadians did. I don't think they would. Simply because, as I said, I gave an example earlier about cultural difference, right? So the case in Canada, if I remember correctly, had to do with a contract between two parties. One party A, said to party B, and party B did a thumbs up, right? And that was it, right? To me, on a personal level, right, a thumbs up could mean I agree. A thumbs up could mean I accept. A thumbs up could mean, okay, I've seen it. A thumbs up could mean, okay, no problems. These four different things mean four different things in law, right? So if you're arguing the case, I don't think, as I said, they would argue like the Canadians because there's too much ambiguity there.
You see, the fact that emojis can possess multiple meanings can create room for confusion. And this leads me to, exploring the interpretation of emoji. How should an emoji be interpreted?
They don't just represent themselves, right? They all have multiple uses.
Now, according to Jennifer Daniel, the way people use emoji can only be decided by those who approved the emoji in the first place and for what use.
Every year, the Unicode Technical Committee publishes guidelines, specifications, algorithms, all the properties required to achieve interoperability between languages and platforms. And every time you use a smartphone or your tablet or your laptop or any device of choice, you're using Unicode standards, right? It's just a single character set that covers the languages of the world.
The Unicode Emoji Subcommittee is like the lawmaking body that sets the rules for emoji and text. Now, they determine the standard of sharing text and emoji digitally.
I'm one of the vice chairs of the Unicode Emoji Subcommittee, which helps regulate emoji.
I am Jennifer Daniel, and I am a member of the Unicode Consortium, which is a not-for-profit organization that digitizes the world's languages. I'm also the chair of the Emoji Subcommittee, which you could say is the group of individuals responsible for those smileys and peaches on your phone.
Now that we know who approved these emojis, let's go back to understanding the meaning of emoji. Now, the video of Jennifer Daniels is from the year 2021, where she was explaining how to use emoji based on Unicode criteria. Now, according to Jennifer Daniels, to understand how people use emoji, you must understand the criteria Unicode considered before adding the emoji in the first place. Now, one of the criteria for an emoji to be added is multiple uses.
They all have multiple uses. When you think about objects, the crown emoji isn't being used because we're all talking about the Queen of England. No, that's not what's happening. We are using it symbolically. We're saying you rule. We're saying that you're the boss. We're saying that you're the queen. We are saying that you're amazing, right? Same for fire. Fire, yes, we are talking about California wildfires, sure, but we're also using it to say that you're hot. We're using it to say that you're spicy. And no one just sends one fire emoji. You have to send 3 at a minimum. Multiple uses then informs all that frequency of use. And so to really understand how people use emojis is to really understand this criteria. Because the subcommittee tries to be as faithful to these guidelines. Because once you add an emoji to the Unicode standard, they never take it away. It's there. It's there forever. So, multiple uses are really important.
You see, multiple uses allow one emoji to be used in multiple ways. To mean multiple things, which gives room for different meanings and therefore miscommunication, just like Barrister Adola argues.
A thumbs up could mean I agree. A thumbs up could mean I accept. A thumbs up could mean, okay, I've seen it. A thumbs up could mean, okay, no problems. These 4 different things mean 4 different things in law, right? So if you're arguing the case, I don't think, as I said, they would argue like the Canadians because there's too much ambiguity there.
Also, in contrast with Unicode's criteria of multiple uses, Dr. Ikechukwu Obiahia believes that the point of communication with symbols is agreement. And that agreement is tied to a community that must agree to the meaning ascribed to that symbol.
Well, it's coming from the fact that we are interacting in community because symbols have to do with agreement. If you and I do not agree that the symbol means something, then we cannot communicate. As elements of communication, those symbols have to be tied to, you could say, a community of speakers. You do not have language in a vacuum. Symbols, by themselves, do not have a meaning separate from what that community chooses to ascribe to those symbols. So that this is why you say, yes, emojis are useful for communicating as symbols, but they will always be tied to what people agree for them to mean.
If the community determines the meaning of emoji, The question now is, which community is emoji designed for?
You will see that community which exists across platforms, digital platforms, is a community. If you take the emoji right now to somebody who does not use social media, who does not use the internet, the person will not have a clue of what some of those things mean. But even though we are here in Nigeria, you have other people in Asia, you have other people in North America, etc., etc. But all of us will understand what these emojis mean because we belong to that community of users of that language. So that is a community. There is a community that is using that.
The Unicode emoji subcommunity's idea of general concept of emoji was added to the criteria in order to reduce specificity but increase inclusivity and versatility for a global community. Instead of specificity in meaning, they want it to be open to different interpretations. However, Dr. Ikechukwu Obiaya said that the emoji symbols are tied to the digital platforms and that is its own community. In other words, anyone who uses the digital platform belongs to that community, whether he is texting from Lagos or New York. Now, he also emphasized, that outside the digital platform, there are communities that use some of these emojis differently, and the difference in meaning between platforms should remain separate and within these platforms.
Emojis also arrive within more restricted communities. There are certain symbols which we ascribe certain meanings that in other parts, perhaps they will use them differently. This is why I stress the point that communication symbols are always tied to a community. If we do not have a mutual understanding of what that symbol means, then it leads to miscommunication, which is where the challenge is with emojis, because the emoji gives the impression that yes, it's universally acceptable to everybody. But you see that in different parts, some of those emojis may have different meanings.
Dr. Obiaya's point is, for those in the real world, depending on where you're located, the meaning of a thumbs up or a heart can be different because these are different communities that have agreed to their own meaning of the thumbs up sign. But within the digital community, which is different from, the communities in the real world, there has to be an agreed meaning. But the problem is the Unicode subcommittee, their criteria of multiple users tend to focus on creating meanings for the many communities that exist in the real world. Now, if only they restricted their boundaries to the digital platforms where they have control and agreed to specific meanings of emoji, there would be less confusion and there would, of course, be emoji to communicate specifics. And the case in Canada would not have happened because there would probably be a specific emoji that would illustrate that the receiver has only just seen the message and that it's not a sign of approval. According to Emojipedia, another member of the Unicode consortium, Unicode is set to release Emoji 15.1. That's the latest version of Emoji, and it will bring another 108 emoji to phones this September 2023. And with the multiple use criteria still in place, the misunderstanding will continue with the release of more emojis as long as, the Unicode continues to legislate or create standard for the digital community, but focusing on the communities in the real world, which is out of their control. Emoji have successfully embedded themselves in pop culture. They aren't going anywhere. According to Jennifer, once an emoji is added, they remain forever. They don't take them out. Never leaves. Right? In fact, emoji have their own day. July 17 is World Emoji Day. And now, with the influx of emoji-based cases in court all around the world, it won't be a surprise to hear that emoji now have their own lawyers. Hey, you could call them emoji lawyers and stuff like that. In all of this, if Unicode can be more specific with the meaning of emoji, emoji would be simple to use without miscommunication or misinterpretation. And courts all around the world would, find it easier to interpret the meaning of emoji simply by using Unicode standard, which would supposedly contain meanings that are not ambiguous. I'm Reginald Anyeke, and this is Rapid TV.